Horizon Gents, one more reaction. And yeah, this is very uplifting title, isn't it? Very rosy and just, I guess, warm and fuzzy title right here. Something is happening at Chernobyl. Now what the fuck? Seriously, this is trending on 21. I guess as a title that should trend, this is on top of the list, I guess. Because this video is just 2 days old and still trending in 21 because something is happening at Chernobyl that is just scary as F. Seriously. Damn. This was the channel Kyle Hill. I don't think I've reacted to Kyle Hill video in the past, have I? I don't remember that. I don't know. It's gonna be fun. It has 873 subscribers, this channel, so I guess it's gonna be a fun video. I don't know. So yeah, remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction I did. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards with different playlists and check out the end cards, I guess. And yeah, let's do this one. No, I didn't forget the earphone. Shut up.
35 years ago, the world experienced what was, and still is, the worst nuclear disaster in history. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant had melted down, spewing radiation across Europe and creating hundreds of tons of radioactive lava, 95% of which remains semi-crystallized in dark basements to this day. And that's where most people's knowledge of the catastrophe ends. Well, almost 4 decades after most of the world has forgotten it, something is happening a few meters below Pripyat once again. What is it? And just how concerned should we be that Chernobyl...
Well, I guess he's going to talk about how, below the sarcophagus, below the, I guess, elephant's foot is that called? It's slowly sinking down. And it's going to mix with some kind of water channels or something and spread out through a whole country or something. Or create explosions, God knows. So there is still a real risk of that. I guess he's going to talk about that. I hope he talks about that because I don't know much details about that. It's going to be fun to, learn about that.
...a radiated heart is still beating. The scope and scale of the disaster that was Chernobyl was something the world had never seen, as was the cleanup. Over 206 days, 90,000 people flooded the dangerous site to clean, catalog, and construct.
Damn.
The first responders were the first victims of fatal radiation doses.
Seriously, I think it was the real life lore video I reacted to where he talked about there was a guy who went down where the elephant's foot is, the core of the radiation where people barely survives, I guess seconds or minutes. Was it a real life lore video? I don't know which channel was that, but yeah, he went there at the time. They didn't know how dangerous it was, so people could survive just barely minutes, and he was there for more than that time. And then I said maybe he died, but somebody in the comments said no, he survived somehow. But yeah, at the time, first responders had no idea about that. They just went there, how strong the radiation was. Because I guess after this Chernobyl event, people start to realize the real danger of radiation, things that all we know of today. At the time, it wasn't that much of a common knowledge for every area, I guess. And first responders probably didn't have idea of what they're dealing with.
Those first bodies failed and robots malfunctioned. Soviet soldiers known as liquidators were brought in.
Damn.
These young men actually considered braving the invisible dangers because the Soviet Union had told them they could either serve 2 years in the concurrent Afghan war or 2 minutes shoveling debris off of their reactor roof. Most of these liquidators are now either sick or dead.
Oh God, Soviet Union, of course. I had no idea that they were forced in a way like that. I mean, if you think about it, they're not being forced, sure. They could serve in Afghanistan or there. But they are kind of being forced. If you tell them that you're going to be serving 2 years in Afghanistan or just 2 minutes in Chernobyl, of course they don't have third option. So I didn't know they were forced like that to do that. Damn.
The initial cleanup at Chernobyl was a monumental and costly effort that ended with the sarcophagus, a hastily made coffin of concrete and steel meant to keep radiation in and everything else out. It wasn't perfect, but it was never meant to be a lasting solution. Because just being in the vicinity of the failed reactor was dangerous in and of itself, nothing was constructed optimally. There were more than 1,000 square meters of cracks in the shelter, and no engineer would ever consider it stable. This was when something much more impressive was designed and eventually implemented: the new safe confinement. Started in October 2007, the new safe confinement, or NSC, would be a modern tomb to rival the ancient pyramids. It was to be built taller than the Statue of Liberty and wider than the Roman Colosseum.
What? I knew that it looked gigantic. I remember watching Top Gear's episode and all the other photos. I played the game Stalker, and also I have this spooky feel of all this area whenever I see the plant and this big dome there. And I knew that it looked towering, but I didn't know it was that big. Bigger than the Statue of Liberty? Damn.
Would require more bolts than most US cities had people, and about half the Titanic's weight in steel. It was slid over the sarcophagus in late November 2017 with the promise of containing the ruins underneath for at least the next 100 years. The NSC would allow scientists inside to study the failure, keep radiation and radioactive dust from escaping into the environment any further, and jumpstart the cleanup process with cranes installed on the interior. The space between the ruined reactor and the outside world was even pressurized. In the event of an excursion from the sarcophagus below, a pressure gradient would keep the nuclear material inside, at least for a little while. Of course, there were 30 years between when the sarcophagus was constructed and when the NSC entombed it. During that time, nature wasn't following the suggestions of scientists. No, every time it rained, water would enter the leaky coffin and soak literally hundreds of thousands of kilograms of nuclear fuel and fuel-containing materials. This was a problem because water interacts with nuclear material in a very specific way. In pretty much every nuclear reactor you've ever heard of, water is critical. Inside of a nuclear reactor, it serves three functions. The first is to cool down fuel. The second is to get turned into steam by that fuel to turn turbines and generate electricity. And the third, germane to this analysis, is to act as a moderator of nuclear reactions. This last function is at the heart of what's happening at Chernobyl right now. Neutrons flying out from radioactive materials don't just smack into other atoms and instantly cause a chain reaction. It turns out that only certain kinds of neutrons do that, the slow kind. Neutrons come screaming out of unstable nuclei at 45 million miles per hour, way too fast for other atoms to grab onto them and continue on the chain reaction. Neutrons at 1/10,000th of that velocity are much better at that, and you can slow neutrons down this much by making them bump into a bunch of stuff. If you've ever played billiards, you've seen something pretty close to what's called an elastic collision, a perfect transfer of momentum. You may have even seen one ball slow down almost completely after a good smack. Looking at the math makes this easy to understand. If momentum is always conserved, then if both balls are the same mass, as you see here, then the only physical option is for one ball to slow down considerably or even completely. An effective way to slow down neutrons inside of a nuclear reactor, therefore, would be for those neutrons to hit as many similar mass particles in elastic collisions as possible and slow way down. This is exactly why you see water in a reactor. The hydrogen in water has mass just like a neutron. And being a similar mass, hydrogen slows neutrons way down after colliding to the point of much more likely chain reactions and the successful operation of a nuclear reactor.
I think this is gonna be bad.
This is the reason why water is a great moderator of nuclear reactions. And all of this brings us back to an inaccessible basement below Chernobyl reactor number 4. Along with the cranes, sprinklers, and entry points, the new safe confinement was outfitted with radiation detectors, and they've been blinking above the ruins of reactor number 4 for 35 years. Some spots are more hot than others, but scientists expected this to be the case. The rapidly constructed sarcophagus was leaky, and most of the uranium fuel at Chernobyl was still slumbering. This meant that any seasonal or heavy rain let water in, submerging the fuel in pitch-black basements and moderating neutron emission. This had the effect of reigniting smoldering embers of the worst nuclear disaster in history. Like lightning.
Okay, so that's why there's a fear that, that if the elephant's foot keeps sinking below and, meets with the water, not only is going to contaminate the water supplies, it's also going to start the chain reaction again because of that. Holy shit, this is heavy.
Neutron spikes in the radiation detectors would come and go with the rain. But this never seemed to worry the scientists of the Institute for Safety Problems of Nuclear Power Plants, the only scientific institution that has been studying the state of the sarcophagus since the accident. And to quote the scientists there, fuel-containing materials were fully wet and dynamics of the neutron flux density was within seasonal trends due to the regular precipitation and condensate input, i.e., there were no potentially hazardous changes of the subcriticality of these nuclear hazardous fissile materials. End quote. And it was this institution, the ISP-NPP, that has now pushed back against the flurry of breathless headlines implying some kind of imminent disaster at Chernobyl. Yes, something is indeed happening. This year, neutrons have been spiking detectors in an inaccessible basement room named 305/2. Yes, there are nuclear reactions pinging beneath Pripyat again. However, these stories are exactly why understanding the nuclear physics first is important. The nuclear scientists watching these spikes in the sarcophagus expected this to happen too. Like they expected spikes as seasonal rains dripped onto slowly deteriorating uranium fuel. You see, the new safe confinement was watertight, which meant that eventually, all that water that had gotten into that cursed place would evaporate. The best hypothesis scientists currently have is that as evaporation in Chernobyl occurs without water to get in the way, neutrons are now moving through the nuclear material differently. The lava-like fuel has cracked and cooled over time and has become porous, full of holes. This change in structure, combined with the receding water and the reflectivity of the surrounding crumbling concrete, is hypothesized to account for the 40% increase in neutron spikes. Those 45 million mile per hour neutrons are shooting out once again.
Nice.
Quoting the representatives of the nuclear power plant in Chernobyl itself, this situation had been predicted by the ISP-NPP before the NSC arch was slid over and was taking place due to the drying of over-moistened environment of black lava-like FCM.
So this is a good news then, huh? That makes sense that, water is, I guess, drying out. So, because there is no water, so, neutrons are speeding up against, I guess. They are not slowing down because of water. So they are not going to start chain reactions like, the water would have caused it, I guess. So if anything, this is good news in a way. And this was predicted, so I guess good. So what the hell's with the title and something is happening at Chernobyl? I'm not going to lie, I don't panic a lot, all right? But since this is a trending video and the title is something is happening at Chernobyl, I kind of got scared like, okay, this is some kind of new development that's going to be scary. Okay, I guess it's gonna go critical again somehow. I don't know why would it ever go critical again, but I don't know, it could. So this panicked me at the start, ignoring the fact that the elephant's foot is still sinking down. That's gonna cause issues in the future. But yeah.
Currently, the sensors tracking the neutron flux density show constant values in all premises with no trends to rise, and the current levels do not pose threat of self-sustained chain reaction of fission.
Nice.
End quote. Of course, this will only put your mind at ease if you believe the predictions of nuclear scientists working at and for the Chernobyl nuclear power plant.
Oh, come on, man. I was just feeling good here, and he just put in the conspiracy type shit right here. They work for the plant, so, maybe they're lying. That's what he's implying there. Damn, why aren't more organizations are getting in this? I guess can't, I guess, I don't know, UN or anybody, some global entity say, okay, you know what, you've been doing your thing for the past 30 years. I guess we need more third party, scientists or something to look at this too, or something like that. I don't know.
Despite the headlines, what is happening at Chernobyl is currently cause for cautious study, not panic.
Yeah.
These are embers of a 35-year-old catastrophe, not a looming second disaster. In fact, according to the physics, nothing like what happened in 1986 is ever likely to happen there again, as remaining water to moderate a meltdown would quickly boil away. And safety protocols like sprinkler systems that spray neutron-absorbing liquids are already in place. But
without a functioning plant, contained plant where the reaction actually take place, just leftover cannot start the same level of chain reaction that it did 30 years ago. So I don't think at Chernobyl something like that can happen, but that doesn't mean disasters can't happen. That doesn't mean, I guess, radiation can leak out through different ways.
Make no mistake here, from monitors sealed underneath an artificial shield taller than the Statue of Liberty, we know that what melted into the earth below the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986, what is beneath a sarcophagus 90 kilometers north of Kiev, is not dead and buried.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Until next time. Thank you so much to the very nerdy staff here at the facility for their direct and substantial support in the creation of this here video. Today especially, I'd like to recognize research assistant Applejuice and visiting scholar Seraph the Angel. If you'd like to join the facility, no, I don't look like a cult leader, and you want to drape on a silky white lab coat, get behind the scenes.
Yeah. Damn. So yeah, the sinking thing, the elephant's foot or whatever that is currently sinking below the ground, I guess is gonna make contact with whatever water channels are below the ground sooner or later. So it could be an issue in the future. I don't know what's gonna happen, man. I hope it is preventable, but I think just one organization that is working for the plant or whatever he said, just them containing things and I guess giving reports is I don't know, scary. I guess third party scientists should also be involved in this by now. At the time Soviet Union, I understand this, but in today, I think in 2021 now, I think different scientists should also be involved in this project or something, because future could be devastating if it leaks out like that. Alright people, that was Something is Happening at Chernobyl, the scariest title you could read on YouTube, I guess. So yeah, by Kyle Hill. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. Check out the cast playlist, check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.